Sting's last match just took place, AEW Revolution.
Yeah.
And man, it's Sting got a send off like I would guess most people in wrestling would absolutely die for. AEW treated him very, very well. So incredible to see Sting kind of go out on his terms that way. Today we're talking about Royal Rumble 1991, and I can't wait to get into these notes. However, before we do, I did want to touch on what you and I discussed here right before we started recording, which is at AEW Revolution, Will Ospreay, a guy who's considered by many to be the best professional wrestler in the world today, has made his AEW debut. And man, what a phenomenal athlete Will Ospreay is. He's gotten all these rave reviews from people, and he's pretty much been anointed as the best that there is in the world. Dad, when you hear about distinctions like that, best in the world, especially from where you sit as a wrestling veteran yourself, what do you make of it?
Okay. Well, here's what I would say, and this guy may be very good, but if he's not a good storyteller, he's not the best in the world.
Mm.
If he is the guy who has got the great body and he takes a lot of really great bumps and all that flying around, that don't make a wrestler. And this is something I've talked about here before, and I will continue to beat the drum. Wrestling as I knew it and as I grew up in it, and I know everything changes, but what changed in it's kind of like when you go to a movie, you know it's a movie when you walk in, you know it's not real. But the actors in the movie, if they play their parts well, they draw you into the story they're telling. They can make you laugh, they can make you cry, and they can, it's kind of like, and what I don't see anymore is great stories, a great match, just flying around the ring and taking pretty bumps, no matter how good they are. A triple somersault off the top rope, and you land on your feet, and everybody goes, "Woo! Okay, big deal." Tell me a story. It's like, in every story, in every movie you watch, there's it's like it's wrestling. There's a good guy and a bad guy, or there's a good entity and a bad entity. And the movie is it's the basic story is the bad guys screw up, they make or do whatever they're going to do, and the rest of the story is about the good guys trying to come up and gradually get to a place where they can lower the hammer on the bad guys. I don't see that anymore. You heard it right here, and I'll go to my grave. I've and these conversations I've had with guys. Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr., who's still alive. Several guys that and I asked them. I said, "Am I missing something, or am I right?" And they all said, "You're right." So it's wrestling is not. So it wasn't meant to be a tumbling act. I hope I've made sense with that.
Yes, you have, and it's I think that there's a place in wrestling for guys with phenomenal move sets and that do incredible things, but it's about doing it the right way, much like a Rey Mysterio did it the right way, where it's like you could when Rey Mysterio was a
Thank,
babyface, he put himself in danger.
thank you, very Marcus. That's an excellent example, because here's a guy who could fly all over the ring, and man, he was great at it. But when he had his matches, he told a story. And the story that Rey Mysterio told was most of the time, whoever his opponent was much bigger than him. And the story was about how is this little guy going to overcome this big guy? And that was the story. And Ray would sell for a good portion of the match, and then when it was time for him to make that comeback and start doing all that stuff that he does, then the people just pop and go crazy until he lowers the boom. 1, 2, 3. That's a good example.
And now, is that the advice that you would give to a young performer like Will Ospreay? Like, hey, look, keep being you, keep all your athletic, incredible moves, but maybe let's just start to look to hone in on storytelling and selling.
That it's so important. It really is. And I hope the fans understood that. But um,
Yeah, I think they
anyway,
do and would, look, anytime you talk about a modern star that fans are really passionate about, it's going to be met with some criticism. Some people are going to say, it's we always hear that, guys even from your generation, like an old timer would come into the locker room and they'd be like, yeah, this guy, he's old fashioned. He's used to the old days when it was just all mat wrestling for an hour. But every generation of wrestling evolves and changes, so this might be met with some criticism, but I mean,
that's
you're
okay.
criticizing constructively.
Yeah, constructively. It's like, well, I'll just be honest. I said, I don't watch much wrestling anymore because it doesn't excite me. Yeah, it's like, again, just being honest. I watch these guys bounce all over the ring. Okay, that was a great bump. Yeah, okay, we'll sell it. If I took a bump over the top rope and hit the floor, I wouldn't bounce up like a jackrabbit and get back in the ring. I would lay there on the floor and sell it. It's like when you go to a movie, you know, and the good guy gets hurt. He sells it. He's wounded or whatever, and
Yep.
it's a story about him climbing back out. How's he going to get out of that hole? How's he going to do it? Anyway,
W
I don't want to just go on and on. Um,
No, look, I'm with you. That's the brand of professional wrestling that I've always preferred. So I hope that we can meet
and
somewhere
I,
in the middle.
I would hope that you have heard the same from Jake,
Yes.
from Arn.
Yep.
Who else?
Hacksaw,
Hacksaw.
all the guys that I've worked with over the years say the same thing, and it almost always boils down to, like, God, we were never athletes like these guys were. Phenomenal athletes,
Yeah,
unbelievable, unmatched, but none of them sell. And that's really kinda what it comes down to. And
yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know, I hope that whenever people hear this, young wrestlers, old wrestlers, anybody, they kinda just look inward instead of say like, "Hey, that's not right, they're talking about me."
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing is I would, and again, good. Okay, I'm gonna make a challenge to any of the new talent in the WWE. Number one, you started out being a fan. Thank you very much for loving something that I grew up in and loved with my whole heart. Um, but I want you to take this challenge. Go back and watch matches between Jake and me, Jake and whoever, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and guys like Terry Funk, Ricky Steamboat, and watch their matches and tell me if the match is. I mean, as you watch it, if you can watch that match and tell me you're not pulling for Ricky Steamboat to make a big comeback, but in the way wrestling is presented today, nobody ever sells long enough for there to be a meaningful comeback.
Couldn't agree more.